In the depths of space where light itself seems to lose its way, there drifts a fleet of crimson ships. Their hulls are etched with sigils of ravens and quills, of wings outstretched in solemn flight. Their engines burn low and red, not with fury but with purpose. Each vessel moves like a thought in the darkness, deliberate and patient, as though searching for something long lost. They are the blood ravens, and they carry a secret older than any among them remember. A secret carved not in stone but in silence. No one knows from where they came, not even they themselves. Their histories begin in fragments, records erased, archives sealed, origins lost in the endless bureaucracy of the Imperium. They are a chapter without a father, without a founding, without a past that can be spoken aloud. And yet, they endure. They endure because they must. Because knowledge, even forbidden knowledge, is the only truth they have left. In the Imperium of man, every chapter knows its lineage. Each can trace its bloodline back to one of the great Primarchs, those divine sons of the Emperor whose deeds shaped the galaxy. But the blood ravens cannot. Their gene seed carries echoes of purity and corruption alike, a strange harmony of psychic potency and unease. Their librarians are many, their power unmatched, yet their origins remain shrouded by design. Some whisper that the blood ravens were born of the cursed founding, the ill-fated 21st attempt to create new space marine chapters. Others say they are something older, something that should not have survived. There are darker rumors still, that their blood runs red not only with humanity but with the taint of sorcery. That their true sire was not among the loyal sons of the Emperor but among the damned. That they are the lost children of Magnus the Red. The blood ravens do not deny this. They do not confirm it either. They simply watch, listen, and remember. To wander among the blood ravens' fleets is to step into a monastery of motion. Their ships are not loud with marching feet or prayers shouted to the void. Instead, they hum with low chants, whispered invocations to knowledge itself. Scriptures line the walls, not of faith but of study. Scrolls, data slates, relics, and books taken from 1,000 worlds are sealed within stasis vaults. Every corridor is a library, every battle brother is a scholar. They do not fight for conquest nor for glory. They fight for understanding. The rarest treasure of all. Each campaign, each world, each foe faced brings new knowledge to be harvested, catalogued, and guarded. Their motto, spoken in quiet reverence, defines them. Knowledge is power. Guard it well. It is a simple creed, yet it holds the paradox that defines their soul. They believe that knowing is divine, that the Emperor's greatest gift was reason. And yet they guard that same knowledge fiercely, as though afraid of what it might reveal. They are both keepers and prisoners of truth. When the blood ravens make war, they do so like archaeologists in armor. Their strikes are precise, their campaigns deliberate, every battle a page in a larger text. They recover lost relics, purge corrupted archives, and seize artifacts from heretic and loyalist alike. To outsiders, this behavior is strange, even sacrilegious. Other chapters call them thieves. But the blood ravens see themselves as guardians, preservers of the Emperor's forgotten knowledge. They believe that ignorance is the truest heresy, that without understanding, faith is blind and fragile. Within their Librarius, the echoes of their past flicker like dying stars. Visions haunt the psychers of the chapter, glimpses of red armor burning under a blue sky, voices crying in a language long dead, and a shadowed figure with a single eye that sees too much. They record these dreams carefully, but none dare interpret them. For to know their meaning may be to know the truth, and some truths are not meant to be found. When the fleet prepares for battle, the blood ravens do not shout war cries. They meditate. They stand in silence, listening to the ship's engines thrum like a heartbeat. They recite fragments of knowledge, verses of wisdom gathered from the Imperium's oldest texts. The sound is low and rhythmic, a sea of murmurs echoing through steel halls. It is not faith that binds them, it is memory. It is the hunger to know. And when they descend upon a world, they do so like ghosts. Their drop pods strike the ground not in fury, but in inevitability. Their bolters roar, yes, but always in measured bursts, like punctuation marks in a long, somber story. When the fighting ends, they search the ruins not for victory, but for relics, for the truth buried beneath ash and bone. There are no statues of Primarchs aboard their ships, no grand murals of lineage, only shelves upon shelves of tomes, each labeled, each protected. Every brother, from scout to captain, contributes his thoughts, his discoveries, his doubts. Their librarians read them all, and in this act of preservation they find their form of immortality. They do not speak of faith in the same way as others. Their worship is quiet. Their prayers are questions. Their gods are knowledge and remembrance. And somewhere deep within their oldest archives, locked behind psychic wards and iron vaults, lies a truth none dare open. A sealed record, a single word burned into the stasis lock. Its title reads simply, Prospero. The fleet drifts onward through the dark, through the quiet. To most it is silence. To the blood ravens it is a whisper. A whisper that says, seek, remember, guard. For knowledge is power, and power unguarded can damn them all. In the great halls of the Blood Raven's Librarius there are shelves older than the chapter itself. Tomes bound in human skin, data slates flickering with half-corrupted runes, fragments of cogitator printouts from the age of apostasy. Among these records lies a void, a deliberate absence, a silence that hums louder than any voice. It is the absence of their beginning, the first truth they ever lost. For the Blood Ravens, the story of their creation is a puzzle with missing pieces, a tapestry torn and burned, leaving only threads of crimson memory. Their brothers in the Adeptus Astartes trace their lineage proudly to the sons of the Emperor, the Ultramarines to Guilliman, the Blood Angels to Sanguinius, the Space Wolves to Russ. But when the Blood Ravens seek their father's name, they find nothing. No gene seed records, no founding decree, no mention of their arrival in Imperial archives. It is as though they were never born, only appeared. Among the scholars of the Ordo Astartes there are whispers, rumors buried under 10,000 years of bureaucracy. They speak of the 21st founding, known in hushed tones as the Cursed Founding. It was a time when the Imperium sought to improve upon the genetic legacy of the Emperor's sons. The result was tragedy. Entire chapters created from unstable gene stock, their physiology warped, their minds broken, their loyalty uncertain. Most were destroyed by the Inquisition before their first century ended. The rest vanished into history. The Blood Ravens emerged around this same era, appearing suddenly, fully formed, their fleet organized, their chain of command intact. No world claimed to have raised them, no record named their creators. And yet their gene seed was declared pure. Too pure, some said, as though someone had worked very hard to make it appear so. The timing was too perfect, the silence too deliberate. The Blood Ravens were born from absence, and in that absence, they found their purpose. The Blood Raven's obsession with knowledge is not merely curiosity, it is inheritance. It is instinct. From their earliest records, they were scholars first, warriors second. Every initiate was trained to question, to study, to remember. Their librarians, far more numerous than in other chapters, became the keepers of their heritage. They sought not only the truth of the galaxy, but the truth of themselves. Yet the more they searched, the more their history seemed to twist away from them. Records of their early campaigns were missing or redacted. Mentions of their first chapter master had been erased from every imperial database. Even the Mechanicus could find no genetic fingerprint to match their gene seed with any of the known Primarchs. The Ordo Hereticus once demanded a full audit of their archives, and the Blood Ravens complied with calm obedience. The Inquisitors left with vaults full of knowledge and returned nothing. The chapter remained uncondemned, but unwelcome. It was as though the Imperium feared what it might learn if it looked too closely. Over millennia, countless theories have been whispered, none proven, all forbidden. Some say the Blood Ravens were a lost successor of the Thousand Sons, the legion damned by the Horus heresy and banished to the warp. The similarities are undeniable. Their red armor, their psychic affinity, their thirst for knowledge, even their symbol. A raven clutching a drop of blood seems like a shadowed echo of Magnus's burning eye. Others believe they were born from a hybrid project, a union of multiple gene seeds, crafted in secret by the Mechanicus to create a perfect balance of mind and body. A chapter meant to think, not just fight. If so, they were the only success in a long line of monstrous failures. And there are those who claim the truth is far simpler, that the Blood Ravens were never created at all, that they were remade, an older chapter purged of name and memory, rewritten by the Inquisition after some unforgivable sin. A rebirth through erasure. To the Blood Ravens, none of these theories are denied or embraced. They collect them all, storing every rumor, every scrap of speculation within their archives. Because even a lie preserved can someday reveal the shape of the truth. If the Blood Ravens are the sons of Magnus the Red, then their story is not one of origin, but of exile. Magnus the Crimson King was once the Emperor's most brilliant and tragic son. Master of psychic arts, seeker of forbidden truths. He believed knowledge could save mankind. He was wrong. His arrogance doomed his legion, his world, and his father's love. And yet the Blood Ravens mirror him in every way that matters. Their hunger for wisdom, their suspicion of faith, their use of psychic might tempered by guilt. They are scholars haunted by the memory of a sin they never committed, or perhaps one they have forgotten. There are moments, rare and private, when their librarians speak of dreams. A figure of immense power, his skin copper red, his eye a blazing sun. He reaches out to them across the void, not with love but with sorrow. And in their dreams they reach back. But before their hands touch, they wake. Always they wake. To most chapters, ignorance is bliss. To the Blood Ravens, it is torment. Every battle they fight, every relic they uncover, every secret they guard brings them one step closer to the truth, and one step closer to despair. For the truth they seek may damn them. If their father truly was a traitor, then their very existence is a crime against the Imperium they serve. And so they live in balance, knowing but not knowing. Fighting for the Emperor with one hand, hiding their blood with the other. Their silence is not deceit, it is survival. It is faith born from uncertainty. Among the chapter's oldest texts written in an unknown hand, there is a single passage repeated like a prayer. We are not what we were, but what we choose to remember. Perhaps that is their truest creed. Perhaps that is all they need. Deep within the litany of the lost, a massive starship that serves as both archive and sanctuary, there lies a chamber sealed by psychic wards older than the Imperium itself. Inside is a single obelisk of black stone, its surface engraved with names. Not of heroes or martyrs, but of possibilities, every Primarch, every legion, every parent they might have had. At its base burns an eternal flame, and beside it stands a lone figure, the Master of Sanctity, guardian of secrets. Each year, the Blood Ravens gather before this monolith in silence. They do not pray. They do not mourn. They simply stand and listen to the fire crackle in the void. And when the ceremony ends, they leave one question unspoken, echoing in every mind. Who are we? No one answers. No one ever has. The Blood Raven's history is a puzzle, its edges smoothed by time, its center missing entirely, but perhaps that is the point. For a truth too terrible to know is still a truth, and the Blood Ravens will find it, even if it destroys them. Until that day, they remain what they have always been: seekers, scholars, orphans of a forgotten war, and above all, keepers of a secret written not in ink but in blood. To know the Blood Ravens is to know their Librarius, that vast echoing sanctum of thought and power that beats at the center of every ship and fortress they inhabit. To the Blood Ravens, the Librarius is not merely an institution, it is the heart of their chapter, the vessel through which the past and future speak in the language of the mind. While other chapters venerate their reclusium or their armory, the Blood Ravens kneel in the halls of knowledge, a cathedral built not of stone but of memory. Every Blood Raven is a student before he is a soldier. Their initiation begins not in combat but in study. They learn the histories of mankind, the writings of philosophers, the mysteries of the warp, and the subtle architecture of the Emperor's will. It is said that by the time a Blood Raven dons his first power armor, he can recite the canticles of duty in 10 languages and debate the moral paradoxes of the Great Crusade by heart. But among them rise the Librarians, the chosen few whose minds are more than human. They are both warriors and thinkers, philosophers and seers. Their psychic talents are not treated as weapons but as instruments of communion, a bridge between reason and the divine. Each librarian is trained in centuries-old meditations, using knowledge as both armor and anchor against the pull of the warp. For the Blood Ravens believe that ignorance, not corruption, is the true gateway to chaos. Where other chapters fear the mind, the Blood Ravens seek to master it. Where others shun psychic power, they embrace it as their inheritance. Though whether that inheritance is holy or heretical, none dare say aloud. The Librarius aboard the Litany of the Lost is said to stretch for kilometers. Endless aisles of data slates, scrolls, relics, and tomes line its halls, each one humming softly with psychic resonance, as though aware of its own importance. Librarians walk these corridors in silence, their armor painted a deep blue with crimson trim, eyes hidden behind faintly glowing visors. They move like monks through a temple, their footsteps echoing in rhythm with the ship's pulse. To outsiders, it is a library. To those within, it is a living mind, a repository of consciousness built over millennia. Each text carries with it the psychic imprint of its scribe. To read from the oldest tomes is to feel the ghost of the author's thoughts brushing against your own. In these halls, the past never truly dies. It lingers, whispering to those who dare to listen. Within the deepest vaults are the codices obscura, forbidden writings sealed by psychic wards and purity sigils. Only the chief librarian may access them, and even he does so rarely. Some say the books write themselves, their words shifting like smoke whenever light touches the page. Others claim they are alive, whispering in languages only the warp can understand. No one knows which is true, and perhaps that ignorance is a mercy. Throughout their history, the Blood Raven's most influential leaders have not been chapter masters but chief librarians. It is they who interpret the omens, who guide the chapter's purpose, who decide which truths are to be sought and which buried. Their authority is absolute, tempered only by their burden. Among them, names like Azariah Kyras, Jonah Orion, and Isador Akios are spoken with equal parts reverence and fear. Some were visionaries who led the chapter to glory. Others were dreamers who fell into darkness, consumed by the very knowledge they sought to master. For every librarian who ascends, another is lost, drawn into the endless sea of thought that lies beyond mortal comprehension. To be chief librarian of the Blood Ravens is to hold a blade with no hilt, one that cuts the hand of any who grasp it too tightly. In the Librarius, there are rituals older than words, meditations performed beneath burning candles of sanctified wax. Psalms recited backward to calm the shifting tides of thought. Each librarian learns to walk the narrow path between enlightenment and madness. They speak of the three silences, the core tenets of psychic discipline within the chapter: the silence of the tongue, the refusal to speak what should not be known, the silence of the heart, the suppression of pride in the face of revelation, the silence of the soul, the acceptance that some truths are not for mortals to wield. Those who break these silences are not punished by their brothers, but by the warp itself. The chapter's archives hold many records of librarians who vanished mid-communion, their minds erased like words wiped from a page. It is said their souls were claimed by the echo of what they sought, consumed by their own curiosity. And still the blood ravens continue, because to stop asking questions would be a greater sin. Unlike other chapters where the Librarius exists to advise the captain or the master of sanctity, among the blood ravens the librarians are the captains. Many company leaders are drawn from their ranks, their psychic sight guiding entire crusades through the chaos of the warp and war alike. Their decisions are not made in haste or fury, but through contemplation and intuition. Every battle is first won in the mind before it is fought on the field. But this gift carries a curse. The deeper their understanding grows, the closer they draw to the truth that terrifies them most. That their power, their intellect, their affinity for the immaterium may not be a blessing of the emperor, but the inheritance of a traitor, and yet none of them turn away. None of them. For if they are to be damned, then let it be through understanding, not ignorance. Among the librarians there is a saying, "The warp punishes the fool but tempts the wise." To them every vision is both a revelation and a test. Every answer opens a deeper question, and so they seek on, unflinching, unstoppable, eternal. Before battle, the librarians gather aboard their ships to form the choir of ravens, a psychic communion spanning the minds of hundreds. Through meditation, they link their thoughts into one harmonious consciousness. To an outsider, it sounds like wind through broken glass, 1,000 voices whispering in unison. Within that unity, they share visions, premonitions, fragments of possible futures. It is through this union that the blood ravens divine the will of the emperor, or whatever remains of it. But unity has a price. When one mind falters, all feel it. When one succumbs to corruption, the taint spreads like ink through water. For this reason, every choir is supervised by a chaplain, whose sole task is to end the life of any librarian who falters. The bond must remain pure, even if it means spilling blood among brothers. To the blood ravens, this is not cruelty, it is necessity. For in the silence that follows, the knowledge endures. The Librarius embodies the blood raven's greatest strength and their greatest flaw. Their quest for understanding has made them more disciplined, more insightful, more dangerous than many of their peers. But it has also made them fragile, too aware of the edge they walk, too haunted by the echo of those who fell before them. They are the keepers of light, but they live in shadow. They guard the truth, but they cannot see their own. And though they wield psychic might that could shatter worlds, they use it as scholars, not conquerors, fearing that every display of power might be one step closer to the Father they dare not name. For all their wisdom, the blood ravens remain children of mystery. And in the end, perhaps it is not their ignorance that will destroy them, but their knowledge. Among the many mottos of the Adeptus Astartes, few are as simple or as profound as that of the blood ravens. Knowledge is power. Guard it well. 6 words. 6 words that have shaped their destiny for 10,000 years. 6 words that define their faith, their duty and their downfall. It is a creed of paradox, both reverent and fearful. For the Blood Ravens believe that knowledge is the Emperor's greatest gift to mankind, and also the weapon most likely to destroy it. Knowledge is power, the first half of the creed, is a declaration of strength. It is the belief that to understand something is to control it, to see the pattern beneath the chaos, the truth beneath the myth. The Blood Ravens believe that every mystery of the galaxy, from the warp to the gene, is a thread in the Emperor's grand design, and that by tracing those threads, humanity can ascend, not through faith, but through comprehension. But the second half, guard it well, changes everything. It is not a command to share knowledge, but to protect it, to conceal it, to ensure that understanding does not fall into unworthy hands. To the Blood Ravens, knowledge is sacred, but it is also dangerous. A flame that must be kept under watch lest it burn the galaxy anew. This duality defines them. They are both priests and jailers, seeking the truth and fearing what it might bring. Every relic they recover, every tome they study, every forbidden artifact they secure, all of it is taken not to spread enlightenment but to prevent catastrophe. And yet, in guarding knowledge so zealously, they have become its prisoners. The Blood Ravens are not faithless, though some accuse them of it. They believe in the Emperor, but they do not worship him as a god. To them, he is the pinnacle of understanding, a being who saw the universe as it truly was. Their reverence is intellectual, not emotional. They pray not for salvation, but for clarity. In their reclusium, prayers are replaced by recitations of knowledge. They speak the names of lost worlds, of fallen heroes, of forgotten sciences. Each recitation is an act of remembrance, a way to preserve what the galaxy seeks to bury. To forget, they believe, is the truest form of heresy. There are no icons of the Emperor crowned in gold within their chapels. Instead, there are books, stacks upon stacks of them, open, unguarded, filled with handwritten notes and coded symbols. Every brother is expected to add to them during his service. When he falls, his writings are placed upon the altar, joining the thoughts of those who came before. Thus, the chapter's faith is cumulative, a living scripture written by 1,000 minds over 1,000 years. The Blood Ravens do not simply collect knowledge, they curate it. Their librarians act as custodians, deciding what truths should be preserved and what should be sealed. This role grants them immense moral authority and unbearable moral weight. To guard knowledge is to make a choice, to decide who may know and who must never know, to decide what truths are worth preserving and what truths must die with silence. There are times when this guardianship becomes something darker. When the Blood Ravens recover a relic from a fallen chapter, they do not always return it. When they uncover forbidden data, they may alter or erase it entirely. When they find the records of others' sins, they sometimes make those records disappear. To them, this is not theft, it is protection. It is the act of shielding the Imperium from truths it is not ready to bear, but to others it is arrogance. The arrogance of men who believe they alone can decide what is safe to know. And so the Blood Ravens are mistrusted, even hated by many of their brothers. Yet they continue unflinching, for they see no other way. Each Blood Raven carries a personal artifact known as the Quill of Oath, a stylized metal feather often worn as a charm upon the breastplate. It symbolizes their devotion to knowledge and restraint. Before every campaign, they dip the tip of the quill into sacred ink mixed with their own blood, and write a single line in their codex of reflection, a journal every warrior keeps. Some record prayers, others record equations, poetry, or philosophical musings. But each entry ends the same way. Knowledge is power. Guard it well. When a brother dies, his quill is broken in half. One piece buried with his body, the other returned to the Librarius, where it is placed in a growing archive of memory. Each fragment a reminder, wisdom must always be paid for in blood. In the deepest levels of their fortress monasteries, beneath layers of adamantium and psychic wards, lie the vaults of anamnesis, the chapter's greatest secret. There, within dimly lit halls, thousands of relics rest in eternal silence. Weapons, books, artifacts, machines, and things that defy description. Some glow faintly with unnatural energy. Others seem to whisper when left alone too long. Every object is catalogued, sealed, and marked with runes of suppression. Only the chapter master and the chief librarian may enter the deepest chambers. And even they do so rarely. There are relics so dangerous that simply gazing upon them invites madness. Yet the blood ravens cannot bring themselves to destroy them. For destruction is ignorance made manifest, the final closing of the mind. To the blood ravens, even evil has lessons to teach, and so they guard their vaults like priests guard relics, not with fear but with reverence, for within these forbidden halls lies the sum of their faith that even darkness, if understood, can serve the light. But there is a cost to this belief, a weight that grows heavier with each passing century. To guard knowledge is to hoard it. To seek understanding is to invite doubt. The blood ravens walk a path where every truth they uncover may lead them closer to ruin. They are often accused of secrecy, of pride, of deceit, and perhaps it is true. For even as they preach restraint, they hunger for what lies beyond restraint. Even as they guard the truth, they cannot help but open its door just to see inside. There is an old saying among them carved above the Librarius gate aboard the Litany of the Lost. He who knows too much forgets to sleep. Perhaps that is why the blood ravens never rest. They are haunted not by nightmares, but by possibility. By the thought that just beyond the next page, beyond the next relic, beyond the next war, the truth waits. Their truth, their origin, their salvation, or their damnation. Until that day comes, they will continue their vigil, guarding their knowledge as a penitent guards his sins. They are the children of a creed that is both blessing and curse. They believe that wisdom is the only light left in the darkness of the 41st millennium. And even if that light burns them from within, they will carry it still. For knowledge is power, and they will guard it well. If the Librarius is the heart of the blood ravens, then subsector Aurelia is the wound that never healed. It was here, among a cluster of dying worlds and drifting tombs, that the chapter's greatest triumphs and deepest sorrows unfolded. It was here that their faith in knowledge began to unravel, replaced by doubt, betrayal, and blood. The stories of Aurelia have been retold 1,000 times in the hushed tones of scribes and the nightmares of chaplains. But among the blood ravens, they are not merely history. They are scripture, a warning written in fire. Aurelia was a forgotten corner of imperial space, a cluster of planets orbiting a dying sun. There were once 13 worlds here, but by the dawn of the 41st millennium, only 5 remained habitable. The rest had been consumed by war, chaos storms, or silence. Among them were Cyrene, Tartarus, Calderis, and Typhon Primaris, names now etched into the blood raven's legacy. These were not just battlefields. They were mirrors reflecting everything noble and cursed within the chapter's soul. It was in Aurelia that the blood ravens truly came to know themselves. Not through meditation or scripture, but through suffering. Each war they fought here was not simply against Xenos or heretics, but against the truth hiding in their own blood. The first great campaign of the blood ravens in Aurelia was the Tartarus campaign, a battle that began as a simple cleansing operation and ended as a revelation. Led by Captain Gabriel Angelos, the Third Company descended upon Tartarus to defend it from an orc invasion. The greenskins were but the surface of the problem. Behind their crude advance moved darker forces, whispers of the warp, cults that spoke of awakening gods, and relics best left untouched. Among the blood ravens was librarian Isador Akios, a man of immense intellect and loyalty, or so it seemed. Together, Angelos and Isador uncovered the presence of the Maledictum, an ancient chaos artifact of unimaginable power. Its surface bore runes older than mankind, and its voice promised knowledge beyond measure. For a time, Isador resisted. But knowledge is temptation, and temptation is hunger. The Maledictum spoke to him in secrets that no mortal should know. Of the chapters past, of the warp's nature, of truths that glittered like stars in the abyss. He listened, and in listening, he fell. When the blood ravens found him again, he was changed. His eyes glowed with warp light. His words were poisoned by wisdom turned inward. He claimed he had seen their true lineage, that the blood ravens were born not of loyalty, but of betrayal, that their father was a sorcerer, not a saint. Gabriel Angelos confronted him, pleading for him to return, to resist the whispers. But Isador could not. He had looked too deeply. He had seen too much. Their duel was short, silent, and sorrowful. In the end, Gabriel slew his brother, not out of rage, but mercy. As Isador fell, he whispered a final truth. "You will understand one day, Gabriel. We all will." The Maledictum was shattered soon after, but even broken, it was not destroyed. Its echoes would return again and again like the refrain of a cursed song. The fall of Isador changed the blood ravens forever. It was the first time they saw what their creed could cost them. Knowledge, unguarded, had claimed one of their brightest minds, and yet, no one could bring themselves to condemn him entirely. In their secret councils, the librarians spoke of him not as a traitor, but as a martyr, a man who reached too far toward the truth and was consumed by it. Some even kept fragments of his writings preserved within sealed vaults, believing that his heresy might one day reveal something pure. It was then that Gabriel Angelos began to doubt, not the emperor, but his own understanding of the chapter's purpose. He had killed his brother to preserve their soul, but in doing so, he had glimpsed the cracks in its foundation. If knowledge was power and power corrupted, what did that make them? Warriors of wisdom or custodians of damnation? Gabriel's doubts were not new. Years before Tartarus, he had witnessed the destruction of Siren, his homeworld. Once a beacon of imperial faith, it had fallen into corruption. The Inquisition declared exterminatus, and Gabriel himself was forced to oversee it. He watched his own people burn in the name of purity, and though he obeyed, the act left a scar deeper than any wound. When the blood ravens later returned to the ruins of Cyrene, they found relics that should not have survived. Ancient texts bearing symbols from before the Imperium's rise, and structures that seemed wrong. Some said the world had been marked by chaos. Others whispered that it had been holy, destroyed not to contain heresy, but to conceal truth. Gabriel never spoke of what he found there, but afterward his eyes carried the same haunted stillness that had once filled Isador's. Each world in the Aurelia subsector tested the blood ravens in new ways. On Calderis, they fought the orcs again. Brutish enemies, yes, but almost comforting in their simplicity. On Typhon Primaris, they uncovered ruins older than the Imperium itself, and beneath them the remnants of a sleeping chaos sorcerer. On Aurelia itself, a world swallowed by the warp and later returned, they faced their greatest trial yet. The planet was haunted by ghosts of their own making. Lost brothers, corrupted by chaos, returned to fight them again. The warp had trapped their past and played it back before them. Every sin, every secret, every death. In fighting for Aurelia, they were fighting for their own souls. And in the silence after the war, when the smoke cleared and the last foe fell, Gabriel Angelos stood upon the shattered earth and said, "We have won nothing, only remembered In the decades that followed, the Blood Ravens grew more withdrawn. They no longer fought to claim worlds, only to recover relics, to retrieve knowledge before others could. Their victories became quieter, their motives more opaque. To outsiders, they appeared secretive, even predatory, arriving late to battles, scavenging relics from the dead. But to themselves, they were atoning. Every artifact they took, every secret they buried was another wound bandaged against the rot of ignorance. Yet Aurelia never left them. The subsector remained a scar on their record, a place of exile and remembrance. Their librarians still dream of it, a red world orbiting a dying sun where whispers echo through the ruins saying, "You know me. You have always known me." And in those dreams, the Blood Ravens remember the voice of Isador Akios, fading into the warp, still asking the question that defines them all. How much truth can one soul bear? The Aurelia subsector is gone now, consumed by the warp once more. No imperial charts record its coordinates. No astropath can find its echo. Only the Blood Ravens remember, and in remembering, they keep its spirit alive. For it was there, amid blood and ash, that they learned what their creed truly meant. That knowledge is indeed power, but power, even when guarded, still burns. There are names that echo through the halls of the Blood Raven's ships like ghostly prayers, names spoken not with hatred but with grief. Among them one stands above all others, Isador Akios. He was a librarian of great promise, a mind of rare brilliance, and a heart seemingly untainted by pride. Where others sought glory, Isador sought understanding. Where others shouted the Emperor's name in war, he whispered it in contemplation. And yet it was that same stillness and that quiet hunger that led him to damnation. His fall was not sudden. It was slow, deliberate, and almost beautiful, like the turning of a page that could never be turned back. In the days before Tartarus, Gabriel Angelos and Isador Akios were brothers in all but blood. Together they had fought on countless worlds, Angelos with his hammer, Isador with his mind. They were opposites, yet inseparable. Angelos embodied faith through action, Isador faith through knowledge. One wielded strength to enforce truth, the other sought truth to justify strength. Many within the chapter believed they would rise together. One as chapter master, the other as chief librarian, but fate does not honor harmony for long. During the campaign on Tartarus, when the maledictum was discovered, Isador was drawn to it immediately. He could sense its resonance, a pulse of thought beneath the surface of the stone, a voice speaking not in words but in understanding. It promised answers to the questions he had always dared not ask. Who were the Blood Ravens? What truth had the Imperium buried? What knowledge could restore them to their rightful place among the sons of the Emperor? Gabriel saw the danger, Isador saw the opportunity, and between them the seed of tragedy was sown. The maledictum was no mere relic. It was a prison of souls, a shard of the Eye of Terror itself, containing the whispers of demons that had outlived empires. Its surface was carved with runes older than the galaxy, glowing faintly in rhythm with the breath of the warp. Those who stood too close claimed they could hear thoughts not their own. Those who lingered too long began to answer. Isador did not resist. He believed himself immune, armed with intellect, fortified by reason. He approached the stone not as a worshipper but as a student. He sought to classify, to understand, to guard it. But knowledge does not yield to will. The more he studied the artifact, the more it studied him in return. Its whispers began as questions, clever, patient, and flattering. Do you seek to know the truth of your brothers? Do you not wonder why your chapter hides its name? Would you not learn, if it meant saving them from ignorance? Each question was a key. Each answer opened a door, and in time Isador stepped through. The Blood Ravens had long believed that knowledge could be mastered, that truth could be controlled if guarded carefully enough. Isador became proof that they were wrong. The maledictum did not conquer him with power but with understanding. It revealed to him fragments of things that might be true. Glimpses of red worlds burning under psychic fire, visions of golden towers crumbling into dust, and the shadow of a man with a single burning eye. It told him that the blood ravens were born of betrayal, that their souls carried the echo of a legion once damned, that even their name, ravens, was chosen to hide the color of their true wings. Isador could not unhear these whispers. He recorded them obsessively, filling tomes with notes, symbols, and connections that only he could see. His brothers noticed his distance. His meditations grew longer. His voice grew softer, and his eyes, once steady and human, began to glow faintly in the dark. When Gabriel confronted him, Isador smiled, calm, kind, and utterly lost. "I am close, brother," he said. "Closer than any of us have ever been. I can feel the truth breathing beneath this stone." Angelos answered only, "Some truths breathe poison." When the blood ravens prepared to destroy the maledictum, Isador refused. He declared that to destroy it was to commit heresy against knowledge itself, to kill what might save them. He spoke of their creed, twisted into something hollow and dangerous. "Knowledge is power, Gabriel, but you have never understood the second part. To guard it well, one must first possess it." And with those words, he betrayed his brothers. He turned his psychic might upon them, wielding the warp like a storm. His power was terrible, not because it was chaotic, but because it was pure. He believed utterly in what he was doing. He believed he was saving the chapter. He believed the Emperor would forgive him, for his sin was born of truth. But the warp does not forgive belief. It consumes it. And so the scholar became the heretic, the guardian became the thief, and the voice of wisdom became the echo of madness. The battle between Gabriel Angelos and Isador Akios was not one of rage. It was quiet, almost reverent, a conversation spoken through blade and will. Gabriel's hammer, God Splitter, met Isador's psychic wards in bursts of blue fire and thunder. Each strike was a question, each block an answer. "You cannot kill me, brother," Isador said, his voice calm even as his armor cracked. "You need me. You need what I have seen, then I shall carry it for you," Gabriel answered. "And I will bear the guilt as well." When the final blow fell, it was not vengeance, it was mercy. Isador fell to his knees, the light fading from his eyes, replaced by relief. He smiled, faint, broken but peaceful. "You'll understand, one day." And then he was gone. Gabriel ordered that Isador's body be burned, his ashes scattered across the surface of Tartarus. But the librarians of the Blood Ravens could not forget him. Some whispered prayers for his soul. Others preserved fragments of his writings, hidden in sealed vaults, marked only with the symbol of a broken quill. To destroy his thoughts would have been to destroy a piece of their own. In the years that followed, the name Isador Akios became both warning and inspiration. Neophytes were taught of his fall not as a caution against curiosity, but as a lesson in humility. He had reached too far, not because he sought knowledge, but because he believed he could own it. Among the chapter's archives, there exists a single preserved fragment of his final writings. A passage recovered from the ruins of Tartarus by an unnamed librarian centuries later. It reads, "The truth is not a treasure to be guarded nor a weapon to be wielded. It is a mirror, and when we gaze into it long enough, we see not the Emperor nor the warp, only ourselves." Gabriel Angelos never spoke of Isador again, not even to his closest advisors. But those who served under him say he carried the weight of that death like a chain around his soul. He fought with greater ferocity after Tartarus, as if every enemy slain could atone for the life he had taken. He prayed more often, though never aloud. And in quiet moments when he believed no one could hear, he whispered his brother's name. The Blood Ravens would fight many wars after Tartarus, against orcs, Eldar, and Chaos alike, but none would wound them as deeply as the war they fought within themselves. For they had seen the cost of unguarded knowledge, and they could never unsee it. To this day, the Blood Ravens mark the anniversary of the Tartarus campaign with silence. No prayers, no songs, no speeches, only quiet reflection. Each librarian lights a single candle in the Librarius, places it upon the floor, and watches it burn. When the flame dies, the candle is not replaced. It is left melted and blackened, a symbol of what curiosity can consume. Somewhere in the deepest vault of the Litany of the Lost lies a stone fragment believed to have come from the shattered maledictum. It is contained within 7 psychic wards and wrapped in chains of blessed iron. No one speaks of it, but sometimes when the ship passes through the warp, a faint whisper can be heard through the corridors, soft, familiar, and sorrowful. We all will, Gabriel, we all will. There are silences in the void that are not born of absence, but of presence. Moments when the hum of the Geller fields deepens, when the lights aboard the fleet flicker for no reason, when the air itself seems to listen. Every chapter of the Adeptus Astartes knows the dangers of the warp, but for the Blood Ravens, the warp does not simply surround them. It remembers them. It calls to them in dreams, in whispers, in visions that bleed through meditation like cracks in stained glass. And sometimes, they answer. The Blood Ravens are unique among the sons of the Emperor. Their psychic potential is vast, far greater than in most loyalist chapters. Almost 1 in 10 of their brothers shows some sign of psychic aptitude. Even among those untrained, dreams come often, filled with fire, symbols, and the sound of distant voices calling their names. Their librarians call it the gift of Raven Song, the psychic harmony that binds their minds together across the void. Through it, they share insight, warning, and intuition in battle, but others call it by another name, the Echo of Prospero. For their power does not feel like the disciplined light of the Ultramarines' librarians, nor the divine fire of the Blood Angels' sanguinary priests. It feels older, heavier, wounded, as though it remembers a great fall. It began as small things, meditations disturbed by faint voices, dreams of crimson pyramids beneath a sky of ash, visions of a one-eyed figure watching from afar, never speaking, never striking, only observing. Some among the Librarius dismissed these as the echoes of the warp, hallucinations born from fatigue and psychic strain. But the pattern persisted. The same symbols, the same voice, the same presence repeated across centuries and across generations of Blood Ravens. It was not coincidence, it was lineage. In the secret archives of the chapter, guarded by the chief librarian and sealed under 1,000 wards, there exists a set of scrolls known as the Ethon Codices. They record visions collected from the chapter's greatest psychers across history. And though written in different ages and different tongues, the imagery is always the same. The crimson tower, the burning sky, and the eye that bleeds light. It is a vision of Prospero, the homeworld of the 1,000 Suns. A world burned to glass by the Emperor's wrath. A world the Blood Ravens have never seen, but seem unable to forget. Among the Blood Ravens, there is an unspoken dread that grows stronger with every generation. They fear that their psychic power, their greatest gift, is also their inherited curse. That the thirst for knowledge that defines them is not their creed, but their instinct. That the same flaw which damned the 1,000 Suns lives on in their blood. In private meditations, some librarians confess that when they reach into the warp, they feel recognition, as if the immaterium itself knows them, welcomes them, remembers them as lost children returning home. They feel hands, unseen but familiar, reaching out through the currents of thought, whispering, "Welcome back, my sons." Most dismiss this as blasphemy, but not all. There are those within the Librarius who have come to see the truth not as a curse, but as destiny. That perhaps they are the inheritors of Magnus the Red, purified through suffering, perfected by discipline, loyal where their father was not. That perhaps they were meant to exist. These whispers are treason. But among the Blood Ravens, treason is always one question away from truth. Over centuries, the chapter's relationship with the warp has grown more complicated. Their librarians have developed new disciplines of thought, psychic meditations that isolate fragments of their own minds to prevent corruption. They call this process the partitioning, dividing the soul into layers, each sealed from the others so that temptation cannot reach the core. But this practice comes at a terrible cost. The partitioned often lose part of themselves in the process. Memories fade, emotions dull. They become more machine than man, perfect instruments of reason yet hollow of spirit. And still, even with such precautions, corruption finds its way through, not as possession nor madness, but as certainty. A cold, righteous conviction that one's knowledge is beyond question, that to doubt is weakness, that the Emperor himself seeks understanding through their hands. This is how the warp corrupts the Blood Ravens, not through lies, but through validation, through giving them exactly what they desire most: the feeling of being right. Some say the Blood Ravens have visited Prospero in secret, that they have walked its glass plains under crimson skies, searching for the remnants of their past. If this is true, no record of it exists, and yet fragments of ancient Prosperoan runes have appeared within their archives, labeled as recovered from an unknown ruin. Their librarians have mastered psychic disciplines identical to those once practiced by the Thousand Sons. Their heraldry, the red armor, the avian sigil, mirrors the lost legion in form and symbolism. Coincidence, say the Inquisition. Fate, whisper the Blood Ravens. There are even reports, though never confirmed, that when their fleet enters the warp, it sometimes travels along paths avoided by the navigators, routes known to be haunted by echoes of the Rubricae, the dust-bound warriors of Magnus. The Blood Ravens claim these paths are quieter, that the voices there are familiar, that they guide them safely through storms that would destroy other ships. The Inquisition has long suspected the truth. In secret conclaves, the Ordo Hereticus debates the Blood Ravens' fate. Their records show too many psychic anomalies, too many recovered relics of forbidden origin, too much knowledge hidden behind polite compliance. And yet the Blood Ravens remain untouched. Why? Because they are useful. No chapter knows chaos better. No chapter has recovered more lost archives, more data, more relics that might aid the Imperium. To destroy them would be to destroy the single greatest repository of knowledge left in the galaxy. And so the Inquisition turns a blind eye even as it watches. A paradox worthy of the Blood Ravens themselves. There is an old tale whispered among the chapter. A vision shared by psychers across centuries, recorded in fragments and reconstructed by the Librarius. It tells of a single raven, black as the void, flying across a crimson sky. Below it lies a burning world, cities in ruin, oceans of ash. Above it an eye opens in the heavens, vast and sorrowful. The raven flies into the eye, and in that moment it becomes red, its feathers ignited, its form consumed. And yet from its ashes a new raven rises, smaller, humbler, but still alive. The Blood Ravens call this dream the birth of flame. They believe it symbolizes their creation, the rebirth of a cursed legacy purified by loyalty. Others say it is prophecy, a warning that they too will burn, and only through that fire will they be made whole. Perhaps both are true. To live as a Blood Raven is to live between revelation and denial. Every victory brings them closer to a truth they dare not name. Every battle against the servants of chaos feels like a fight against their own reflection. They are scholars of corruption who fear to study themselves, and yet they endure. For even if their blood is cursed, their will is their own. Even if their souls are marked, their purpose remains pure. They will seek, they will learn, they will guard, until the last library burns, until the last page turns to dust. In the words of a forgotten librarian written centuries ago in a trembling hand, the warp calls us not to destroy, but to remember. We are not its servants nor its masters, and only its echo. And so the blood ravens drift through the stars, haunted by knowledge and hunted by truth. The warp knows their names. It whispers to them in the dark, and sometimes they whisper back. In the Imperium of Man, there are two kinds of silence. The first is born of reverence, the quiet that follows a prayer. The second is born of fear, the hush that settles when an inquisitor enters the room. The blood ravens have known both. They have fought beside the ordos of the Inquisition more often than most chapters ever will. The Ordo Hereticus, hunting human corruption. The Ordo Xenos, purging alien contagion. And most dangerously of all, the Ordo Malleus, for whom silence is a sacrament and memory a weapon. The ravens and the Inquisition exist in a paradox of mutual dependence. Each needs what the other guards. Each fears what the other knows. And between them stands a table of ledgers, some written in ink, most written in omission. To the public records of the Administratum, the blood ravens and the Inquisition are model collaborators. The ravens arrive where they are asked, their strike cruisers sliding into station like red quills poised over a decree. They prosecute purges with clinical precision. They recover evidence. They secure artifacts. They deliver reports that are concise, respectful, and incomplete. The Inquisition accepts these reports with equal courtesy, and then sends for everything the ravens did not include. This is the rhythm of their dance. Request and redaction, summons and censure, cooperation and quiet refusal. The blood ravens will fight any foe, break any siege, burn any world if it must be done. But when the ash settles and the reliquaries cool, the ravens keep what they deem too dangerous to circulate, or too enlightening to destroy. To most chapters, this would be heresy. To the blood ravens, it is guardianship. Inquisitorial audits aboard a blood raven's vessel are rituals of theater and patience. The Litany of the Lost has a chamber set aside for such occasions, a long hall with black marble floors and walls inscribed with scripture in 100 scripts. The inscriptions are all accurate, all pious, and all unhelpful. An inquisitor arrives with retinues of scribes and lex mechanics. The scribes unroll vellum inventories. The machines hum, ready to probe, quantify, and condemn. The chapter's representatives, often a chaplain and a librarian, greet them with formal bows and open hands. Together they begin a procession through vaults of knowledge, each door opening under a layering of sigils and oaths. The Inquisitor asks questions. The blood ravens answer exactly, never less, never more. The device recovered on Typhon Primaris? Destroyed. By whom? By us. Describe the process. We destroyed it. There is no mockery in their tone, no contempt, only the careful calm of men who believe that words are blades and will not wave them about in crowded rooms. The Inquisitor may request a demonstration. The ravens provide a different relic, similar enough to satisfy protocol, different enough to protect the truth. Everyone understands the game. Everyone pretends it is not a game. And sometimes the Inquisition smiles, because secrets kept by trustworthy hands are cheaper to keep than secrets drowned in blood. Among the Adeptus Astartes, the blood ravens bear a reputation that clings like smoke, relic thieves. They arrive late to campaigns and leave early, the old joke goes, and yet never depart empty-handed. It is unkind and not wholly untrue, And when a battlefield quiets and the dead are counted, the blood ravens remain behind with studious care. They catalog, they copy, they consecrate. They locate reliquaries other chapters would consign to ash. They claim them for safety, for preservation, for a future that will need more than sermons to survive. "Return what is ours," a chapter master once demanded by Vox, standing amid the ruins of a defeated warband. "Brother," the blood raven replied, "if it were yours, chaos would already own it." Such exchanges earn the ravens few friends, but friendship is a currency they can no longer afford. Knowledge must be guarded, and guardians do not ask permission to bar the door. There are inquisitors who hate the blood ravens, who would see their fleet seized and their vaults open to the vacuum of space. And there are others who defend them with quiet ferocity, citing statistics no one dares contest. Corrupt cult routings accelerated by raven reconnaissance. Demon incursions averted by artifacts the Inquisition did not have the means to recognize. Archives reconstructed from fragments no one else knew how to read. The most dangerous allies are those who admire them. An inquisitor with a taste for scholarship sees a mirror in a blood raven librarian, a mind that values patterns over passions. Admiration breeds indulgence. Indulgence breeds oversight. Oversight breeds catastrophe. Thus the Ordos rotate their auditors. Thus the blood ravens rotate their keepers. No man must look into the same vault for too long. Formally, the Inquisition answers to no one. Informally, they answer to necessity. In the age of the Great Rift, where half the galaxy lies drowned in warp light, necessity often wears red. A pattern emerged in the centuries around the Aurelia campaigns, where the blood ravens fought. Inquisitorial operations succeeded, not because the ravens obeyed every command, but because they obeyed the intention behind the command, the preservation of the Imperium's future. They shared intelligence freely when it rescued worlds and withheld it ruthlessly when it endangered sectors. The paradox holds: the Inquisition trusts them because the ravens refuse to trust the Inquisition completely. Mutually assured discretion. Within the ravens' Librarius exists a charter older than their earliest extant casualty roll, the Oaths of Custody. It declares that any object which cannot be safely destroyed and cannot be safely understood must be safely hidden. The oath binds librarian and chaplain alike, for knowledge unanchored by conscience is merely hunger given grammar. When the Inquisition demands a relic, the oaths require a debate. 3 voices must assent: a captain for war, a chaplain for faith, and a librarian for truth. If even one dissents with cause recorded, the relic remains sealed. The Inquisition may protest. The vault does not open. It is a provocative custom. It has saved worlds. It has nearly ended the chapter. There are stories the ravens never tell, and others they tell only to the Inquisition. Bound in iron, signed in blood, locked away in archives no mortal eye should open. The Krieg Sotha reliquary. An Ordo Xenos kill team pursued a crystalline engine through 9 tomb complexes only to watch it sing itself awake. The blood ravens encircled it with silence fields and chanted calculus like hymns until it fell quiet. The Inquisitor asked for custody. The ravens requested a century to study. The custodian seal bears both sigils. The device has not sung since. The Lethe Index, a codex of names that unwrite themselves. To read the list is to forget it. To recite it is to erase it. The Ordo Hereticus wanted it burned. The blood ravens argued that a thing that erases knowledge is a thing the chapter is bound to resist. The compromise: the index remains in stasis, guarded by an acolyte who has no memory of the oath he keeps. The Angelus Casket, a reliquary allegedly taken from a fallen loyalist chapter, containing a weapon of righteous provenance and uncertain consequence. The Inquisition demanded proof of origin. The Ravens produced two proofs, mutually exclusive and equally compelling. The casket remains sealed and the galaxy spins on. These files exist as parables for neophytes, not to teach defiance but to teach weight. The Blood Ravens maintain listening posts not just for Xenos signals or warp anomalies but for inquisitorial movements, not to evade justice, but to prepare hospitality, the kind that protects both guest and host from knowledge that would ruin them. Likewise, the Ordos maintain dossiers on every librarian of note, tracking patterns of thought as carefully as they track patterns of heresy. The brightest minds cast the darkest shadows. Profiles are updated with each campaign, footnotes quoting sermons, battlefield vox, and the margins of confiscated journals. Many entries conclude the same way. Useful, dangerous, continue observation. Thus the quiet war is waged, not with bolters but with edits. When Gabriel Angelos rose to chapter master, the Inquisition's calculus shifted. He is a warrior whose piety is measured, whose humility is stubborn, whose gaze turns every demand into a request. In audits, he answers questions with confessions that are truer than the truth asked for. He gives the Inquisition nothing to strike and much to consider. Under Angelos, the chapter's cooperation increased, and so did its discretion. More joint operations, more shared victories, more sealed vaults. The Ordos learned that a yes from a Blood Raven means the mission will succeed, and a no means the galaxy will be spared a lesson it is not ready to learn. When the Great Rift tore the sky, Angelos sent a single communique to 3 Inquisitors with whom the chapter had clashed and conspired for decades. "We will guard what you cannot remember to fear." None replied. All 3 rerouted assets to his war fronts. For most of the Imperium, faith is spectacle. Banners, bells, incense, fire. For the Blood Ravens and the Inquisition, faith is procedure. Signatures, chains, countersigns. A relic sealed is a prayer completed. A truth deferred is a martyrdom avoided. In this they are kin. In this they are enemies. The Ordos demand answers. The Ravens give safeguards. Between question and caution lives a partnership that has outlasted crusades and schisms alike. Because both sides understand the price of certainty is often paid by strangers who did not ask the question. There is a final ritual when an audit ends. The Inquisitor closes a ledger, the Librarian closes a vault, and a chaplain places a broken quill upon the table, the symbol of a brother who died guarding a secret. The Inquisitor stares at the feather, understanding its accusation and its absolution. Some knowledge is already paid for. Let it not be spent twice. The Inquisitor takes the ledger, the chaplain takes the quill, the Librarian takes the blame, and the ship returns to war. If the Blood Ravens could be accused of a single sin, it would be curation. They curate the Imperium the way a conservator tends a burning museum, rescuing canvases while the roof collapses, cataloging ash, deciding in a heartbeat which truth survives to teach tomorrow and which truth dies to save today. The Inquisition does the same thing, only louder. This is why they remain bound. 2 orders, alike in purpose, opposed in method, joined by necessity. The Inquisition keeps the Imperium alive by cutting away rot. The Blood Ravens keep the Imperium honest by hiding scars it cannot bear to see. Neither is virtuous. Both are essential. In the end, the ledger and the vault are the same object seen from different sides. One tallies what can be known. The other shelters what must not be known yet. Between them stands a chapter in crimson and an agency in black, and the long night that requires them both. When the lights dim on the audit hall and the ship's engines deepen, the Blood Ravens return to their first creed, whispered so softly that even the walls must lean in to hear, "Knowledge is power." Guard it well. In every library there is a final shelf that no one is meant to open. For the Blood Ravens, that shelf bears one name only, Azariah Kyras. He was once the brightest of them, the chief librarian whose mind held the weight of 10,000 years of knowledge. Under his guidance, the chapter flourished, its archives doubled, its psychic disciplines refined to an art. He was the living proof that wisdom could master the warp, and in the end, he proved that wisdom could not. Azariah Kyras rose in the centuries following the Wars of Aurelia. The chapter was weary, its brothers haunted by loss and doubt. Kyras brought order where there had been questioning. He preached that knowledge must not merely be guarded, it must be guided. The Librarius became not a monastery of thought, but a bureaucracy of revelation. Every scrap of recovered lore passed through Kyras's mind before it reached the vaults. Every librarian bowed to his interpretation of the creed. The chapter master at the time, a cautious and aging warrior named Valen, deferred to him. Valen fought battles, Kyras defined purpose. Soon the balance tipped, and the Blood Ravens became the chapter of Kyras. He spoke softly, always softly, and his words were logic itself. We are the Emperor's mind. Others are his fist. We will shape his design while they sleep. Few dared disagree. Those who did found their assignments changed, their access restricted, their names absent from later chronicles. The silence of the Librarius grew deeper, more absolute. Under Kyras, the Blood Ravens embarked on what he called the doctrine of reclamation, an endless crusade to retrieve relics and knowledge abandoned during the age of apostasy. Whole companies scoured dead sectors for data vaults and ruins. Planets bled so that a single archive might be preserved. At first, the Imperium applauded. Even the Inquisition praised the efficiency of the red-armored scholars. But then the missions grew stranger. Some fleets returned with artifacts the Mechanicus refused to touch. Others vanished, their last transmissions filled with binary screams and the names of forgotten gods. Kyras justified every loss. The Emperor's light burns brightest where the shadows are thickest, he said. If we do not enter them, who will? He spoke of a vision, a library vast enough to contain every truth of mankind. He called it the Vault Eternal. He believed the Emperor desired it, a cathedral of knowledge at the edge of the Imperium, where even the warp would kneel. His brothers followed. Because to doubt him was to doubt their purpose. No one knows precisely when Kyras turned. Some say he never turned at all, that his damnation began the moment he decided truth could be owned. Others believe the warp itself courted him, offering comprehension in exchange for obedience. He began to meditate alone, deeper and longer than any librarian before him. His mind ranged across the immaterium, touching entities older than the stars. He called them the voices of understanding. They taught him patterns that defied mathematics, prayers that bent light, names that unmade pain. He returned from each trance thinner, quieter, more certain. When he spoke, even the air seemed to hesitate. He introduced a new discipline, the Covenant of the Veil, psychic unification of mind and machine and demon alike. He said it would allow the Blood Ravens to communicate with the warp without falling to it. He demonstrated once. A candle burned blue for 3 days without fuel. A mortal scribe spoke in perfect High Gothic and then forgot every word. The observers wept at the beauty. After that, no one questioned him again. It was decades before the truth broke the surface. Entire strike forces had vanished in the name of the Vault Eternal. Astropaths reported coordinates that led into warp storms. The Inquisition began to ask questions. Kyras answered before they arrived. He declared a chapter severance, cutting all communication with Imperial command. He claimed it was a necessary quarantine, citing psychic contagion from recovered relics. The fleets turned inward, gathering near the dead worlds of Aurelia once more, but isolation breeds clarity. Within the chapter, doubts blossomed. Captains whispered that the librarians' eyes glowed too long, that their voices echoed when they prayed. Chaplains heard sermons altered by a single word, and that word changed the meaning entirely. The greatest of these doubters was Gabriel Angelos. By then, Gabriel was an old warrior, scarred by faith and memory alike. He returned from crusade to find the chapter he had once bled for, transformed into a congregation of zealots. The libraries that had once hummed with learning now thrummed with chanting. The words had changed. No longer knowledge is power. Now they said, knowledge is ascension. Gabriel confronted Kyras in the grand sanctum aboard the Litany of the Lost. Their meeting is recorded in fragmented Vox transcripts, preserved despite every attempt to erase them. "You've turned our creed into a cage," Gabriel said quietly. Kyras smiled. "No, brother. I've turned it into a ladder." Gabriel frowned. "A ladder to what?" "To the truth," Kyras whispered. "To the Father who watches. To the mind that sleeps beneath the warp." Gabriel raised his hammer. "Then you climb alone." When Gabriel left the chamber, his hammer was dark with soot. Within a month, the chapter fractured. The civil war that followed was fought in silence, ship against ship, brother against brother, psychic light flashing like lightning through void black corridors. No Vox traffic escaped the conflict, only the echoes of teleport strikes and the distant hymns of the warp. The librarians loyal to Kyras called themselves the Covenant Eternal. Those loyal to Angelus fought as the Remnant, seeking to purge corruption without destroying what remained of their heritage. Every world they touched burned. Calderas cracked. Typhon Primaris dissolved beneath storms of demonic flame. Even the Litany of the Lost was split in half by orbital bombardment, its libraries scattering into the void like pages of an unbound book. In the heart of that chaos, Kyras revealed his final truth. He stood before his followers and declared himself the voice of the one-eyed king. Magnus, he said, had chosen the blood ravens to complete what the Thousand Suns began. Not rebellion, but redemption through knowledge divine. Through him they would join the Crimson King in unity of purpose. Through him they would remember. The warp answered. The covenant dissolved into flame, and from that flame rose demons with the faces of men. Kyras ascended, or fell, in a column of red light that split the sky. Gabriel Angelos gave the only order a loyal son can give when family becomes foe. Cleanse everything. For 7 days and nights, the blood ravens purged their own fleet. Vaults burned, libraries collapsed, records were erased, entire companies were declared missing in remembrance, a euphemism that hides massacre behind mercy. When the last heretic was silenced, the remnant numbered barely a third of their former strength. Gabriel stood among the ashes and refused the title of chapter master. He said the blood ravens had no master, only duty. No body was ever recovered. Some say Kyras was consumed by the warp. Others insist he became something within it, a whisper that still calls to the librarians in their dreams. There are reports centuries later of blood ravens encountering a hooded figure on warp-touched worlds, a man who knows their names before they speak, who offers them relics of impossible design, and who vanishes when confronted. Each time, the encounter ends the same way. The relic is placed in a vault, sealed, unnamed. One inscription appears again and again in the containment logs. Custody authorized by K. The purge did not end the wound, it only stopped the bleeding. The blood ravens swore new vows, reforging their creed through sorrow. They restored the second half of their motto to prominence: guard it well. The Librarius was rebuilt, its walls lined with names of the fallen. Those who sought too much and those who killed them for it. Chaplains began each sermon with the lighting of 2 candles, one for wisdom, one for restraint. When the second candle burns out first, the sermon ends. Gabriel Angelos took command at last, not by acclamation but by silence. He forbade the rebuilding of the Vault Eternal. He ordered the remnants of Kyras' writing sealed in triple stasis. He kept one page upon his person, a scrap of parchment inscribed with a single line in Kyras' hand. To know is to touch the divine. To guard is to deny it. Gabriel never spoke of it again. The Betrayal of Kyras became the Blood Raven's living parable, the story that every initiate learns by rote, the nightmare every librarian must confront in meditation. It is recited not as condemnation but as warning, the thin line between reverence and idolatry, between curiosity and covetousness. In the deepest vaults, the charred fragments of the Litany of the Lost remain. Upon one surviving bulkhead the words still shimmer, burned into the metal by psychic fire. Knowledge is power, guard it well. Between the two sentences a single word has been scratched by hand. Remember, in the long history of the Blood Ravens there are many heroes, warriors of unflinching faith and fierce intellect. But none bear the weight of their chapter's soul like Gabriel Angelos. He is remembered not for victory but for endurance, not for revelation but for restraint. In a galaxy where every voice screams for attention, Gabriel speaks softly, and the stars listen. He did not seek to be chapter master. He did not even seek to survive. He simply refused to let the Blood Ravens die. When the war against Kyras ended, the chapter was broken. Their fleets scattered, their records burned, their faith in themselves left hanging by a thread finer than a prayer. In the aftermath, Gabriel Angelos stood among the ashes and was asked by the last surviving captains to take command. He refused, not once, but 3 times. "I am a soldier, not a shepherd," he said. "We need a keeper," they answered. "Then guard the knowledge yourselves," he replied. "We tried," said one of them, "and lost everything." So he bowed his head and accepted, not out of ambition, but out of exhaustion. He took the title of chapter master the way a penitent takes his chains, with quiet resignation and grim resolve. Under Gabriel's leadership, the Blood Ravens became quieter than ever before. Their ships no longer announced their arrivals with trumpet blasts or vox declarations of faith. They simply appeared, red silhouettes against black void, fought their wars and vanished again. They stopped claiming trophies. They stopped collecting relics in the open. When they recovered artifacts, they did so without ceremony, without pride. Each relic was catalogued, purified, and locked away without name or explanation. To ask its story was to invite reprimand. Gabriel turned their obsession inward. The chapter that once sought to uncover secrets became one that mastered the art of silence. He taught his brothers that the truest form of knowledge was understanding what not to say. To the Inquisition, this was a relief. To the Blood Ravens, it was repentance. Gabriel rewrote the chapter's oath, not to replace the old one, but to interpret it. During the ceremony of induction, new initiates no longer shouted, "Knowledge is power," as a call to arms. They whispered it, followed by his addition, "Power is temptation, guard it well." This became known as the Creed of Ashes, for it was born from ruin. Every raven who survived Kyras' war bore scars, physical, psychic, or both. They trained less for conquest and more for vigilance. Where once their campaigns spanned sectors, they now focused on single worlds, single relics, single truths. The Blood Ravens under Gabriel became watchmen, keepers of the boundaries between wisdom and heresy, and he, their reluctant master, became both confessor and warden. The rebuilding took centuries. Recruitment began anew on hidden worlds, chosen not for glory but for humility. Many of the aspirants came from the remnants of Cyrene's diaspora, descendants of those Gabriel had once ordered destroyed. He never told them. Perhaps he didn't need to. Perhaps they carried the same quiet sadness he did, and in that sorrow, he saw kinship. The Blood Ravens rebuilt their fortress monastery upon a barren moon they named Omnis Arcanum, the all-knowing. The irony was intentional. Its walls were plain, its spires low, its libraries deep but unadorned. It was not a temple, but a tomb for pride. Every hall echoed with discipline, every chamber hummed with restraint. And beneath the central sanctum, deep within the Librarius, Gabriel ordered the construction of a new vault. Smaller, stronger, unmarked. No one but he knew what lay within. Some say it holds the last fragment of Kyras' writings. Others believe it holds something far older. Only one inscription is carved above its sealed gate. There are questions we must not answer. Even as he restored the chapter's purpose, doubt haunted him. At night, when the warp winds howled against the Geller fields, he dreamed of Kyras, not as an enemy, but as a reflection. He saw himself in that quiet arrogance, that belief that only he could protect the truth. He feared that in saving the chapter he had become what he hated, a keeper of secrets so deep that even the Emperor's light could not reach them. There are records of his confessions to the Reclusium chaplains. Every relic I hide becomes a chain. Every secret I guard becomes a mirror. I do not know whether I lead us to salvation or merely delay our damnation, but the chaplains never answered him, for they too had learned the lesson of the Blood Ravens. That silence can sometimes be mercy. Gabriel's later years were defined by one final campaign, the Aurelia Reclamation, a doomed attempt to reclaim what remained of the subsector that had birthed both Isador's fall and Kyras' rise. The worlds had long since been swallowed by the warp, but fragments occasionally reappeared. Dead satellites, drifting stations, ghost planets flickering in and out of reality. The Blood Ravens pursued these echoes like pilgrims chasing the shadow of a saint. Each time the results were the same, nothing but ruins and ghosts. And yet Gabriel pressed on as if the act of searching itself was absolution. The final records of this crusade describe a world half submerged in red fog. Gabriel led a detachment of veterans into its ruins and did not return for 3 days. When he emerged, his armor was scorched black, his hammer shattered, and his eyes calm. He said nothing of what he found, only that the search was over. The Blood Ravens never returned to Aurelia again. In his final years, Gabriel Angelos taught no doctrines, issued no manifestos. Instead, he taught through absence. When asked how much truth a man should seek, he answered, "Enough to serve. No more." When asked how one should pray for forgiveness, he said, "Do not ask to forget. Ask to remember quietly." And when asked what he believed about the Blood Raven's true origin, he smiled, a faint, tired smile. "Every child believes their father was a hero," he said. "Sometimes it's enough that they choose to be better." The exact date of Gabriel Angelos' death is not recorded. His final campaign was against the orcs of the Acheron Reach, a conflict so brutal that entire continents were glassed. Witnesses claim that during the battle's climax, Gabriel led a boarding strike against a Xenos war barge alone, his teleport beacon malfunctioning. He was last seen on the ship's surface, surrounded by enemies, his broken hammer raised high. When the explosion came, no trace of him remained. The Blood Ravens declared him missing in duty, not fallen. Because men like Gabriel Angelos do not fall, they fade. In the Reclusium of Omnis Arcanum, there is a single cenotaph, a plain stone, unadorned, with only one line inscribed, "He guarded well." The veterans pass it in silence. The novices bow. And in the dark, the candle beside it never goes out. Gabriel Angelos left behind no heirs, no writings, no prophecies, only an example. He proved that redemption is not a light one reaches for, but a burden one carries. He turned a chapter of secrets into a brotherhood of responsibility. and in doing so, he made the Blood Ravens what they were always meant to be. Not seekers of forbidden knowledge, but custodians of meaning. He once said to his chaplain, in a moment of rare candor, "The Emperor does not need us to be right. He needs us to endure," and endure they did. For centuries after his disappearance, the Blood Ravens fought on, quieter, wiser, and still haunted. Each battle, each relic, each prayer a continuation of his long, weary vigil, a whisper in the endless dark. Knowledge is power. Guard it well. Among the Blood Ravens, nothing is ever forgotten. Not a name, not a failure, not a sin. Their ships are filled with silence, but beneath that silence hums the weight of memory, a chorus of the unspoken that echoes through every corridor, every vault, every mind. To be a Blood Raven is to remember. It is both their creed and their curse. In the deepest chambers of Omnis Arcanum lies the Hall of Remembrance, a sanctum lined with tablets of dark stone. Each slab bears thousands of names, some written in elegant script, others etched in haste by trembling hands. Every Blood Raven who falls in service is recorded there, but not only in name. Each has a fragment of his mind, a psychic echo preserved through ritual, captured in the moment of death by the Librarius. The echoes are faint, incomplete, more emotion than thought. But together they form the living memory of the chapter. To enter the hall is to feel the weight of thousands of lives pressing gently against your soul. Sorrow, pride, regret, resolve. Initiates enter the hall before their first deployment. They stand in silence until the whispers of their predecessors fill the air like soft rain. It is said that no one leaves unchanged. The veterans call it the second baptism, not by water or flame, but by remembrance. For the Blood Ravens, to forget is to betray. They believe that every lesson, no matter how painful, must be preserved, even if it cannot be understood. This philosophy comes from a single line written by Gabriel Angelos before his final campaign. If knowledge is power, then memory is truth. It became the second half of their unspoken creed, never carved in stone but passed from brother to brother, whispered before battle like a prayer. They do not fight for glory or vengeance, but for the preservation of what has already been paid for in blood. To them, the dead are not gone. They are consulted. The living are but custodians of the dead's experience. Each choice they make must honor the wisdom of those who fell making the same mistakes. This is what keeps them humble and what drives them mad. Beneath Omnis Arcanum lies another chamber, forbidden to all but the librarians, the dreaming vaults. Here the echoes of fallen psychers are preserved in stasis crystals, fragments of consciousness suspended in amber light. The librarians call it the choir dormant. When great decisions must be made, the chief librarian descends alone and opens the seals. One by one, the crystals awaken, their trapped thoughts coalescing into a chorus of murmurs. No single voice dominates, no clear answers emerge. Instead, the listener feels patterns of emotion, warnings, approval, sorrow. It is said that through these whispers, the Blood Ravens are guided by the ghosts of their own mistakes. The process is not without cost. To commune with the choir is to risk becoming part of it. Many librarians have entered the vault seeking guidance and never returned, their minds dissolving peacefully into the collective memory. The chapter calls them the willing forgotten. Every Blood Raven carries a personal relic, not a weapon, not a token, but a list, a strip of parchment bound to the inside of his armor, inked with the names of brothers he has seen die. Each time one falls, his name is added in silence. When the list becomes too long to wear, it is burned in the Hall of Remembrance, and the ashes are mixed into the ink of the chapter's archives. Thus the memories of the fallen literally become part of the records they fought to preserve. It is said that when the Reclusium prepares parchment for a new codex, the ink faintly shimmers, not with light, but with something deeper, like the soul's reflection on still water. Some whisper that the ink whispers back. Memory is a gift, but clarity is its poison. Over time, the blood ravens began to see patterns no one else could. Coincidences linking battles, visions, even dreams. They could trace the lineage of heresy through centuries, map the recurrence of certain relics, recognize the same demon's hand behind different wars. They saw that history was not a line, but a circle, repeating endlessly. And they realized that they too were part of that circle. This knowledge haunts them. For how can one guard the truth when one knows the truth cannot change? How can one atone when every redemption merely repeats a sin already committed? Some librarians descend into despair, believing the blood ravens are doomed to relive the fall of Prospero forever, reborn again and again in different forms, each time thinking they are new. Others believe the cycle itself is the Emperor's test, that to endure the loop is to prove faith unbreakable. Neither belief brings comfort. The blood ravens' historians are not like imperial scribes. They do not write to glorify or justify. They write to remember accurately, even when accuracy is unbearable. There are entire codices within the chapter's archives that no one reads. They are sealed not because they are heretical, but because their truths are too painful. Accounts of friendly fire, records of failed crusades, the personal writings of Kyras and Isador preserved unaltered for future generations. Not to honor them, but to ensure their mistakes are never forgotten. The librarians refer to this as the burden of accuracy. It is said that some neophytes, upon first learning the full truth of their history, weep openly. The chaplains do not stop them. Tears, after all, are another form of memory. Once every 100 years, the blood ravens gather upon the plains outside Omnis Arcanum for a ritual known as the Raven's Vigil. No speeches are made, no orders given. The entire chapter stands in silence beneath the stars, the librarians projecting faint psychic echoes of the past, battles fought, brothers lost, worlds saved and destroyed. The sky fills with shimmering red phantoms, each one a memory. They flicker across the night like fireflies in slow motion. Ghosts of bolter fire, fragments of prayers, silhouettes of fallen warriors. It is not meant to inspire, it is meant to humble. When the final echoes fade, every blood raven kneels and recites the closing line of the ritual. We remember because forgetting is heresy. Then they return to war. The curse of memory is that it does not fade with time. To remember everything is to carry the pain of the galaxy itself. Many blood ravens grow weary not from wounds but from recollection. They dream of faces they never knew, of deaths they never witnessed, echoes passed down through psychic resonance. Some call it memory bleed. To ease this burden, chaplains conduct a ritual called the quieting. Through meditation and controlled hypnosis, a warrior's most painful memories are gently dimmed, not erased, only softened. The memory remains, but the sting dulls like an old scar. Yet some refuse the ritual, choosing to bear the full weight of remembrance. They are respected and pitied. When a librarian kneels before the sealed vaults, he recites a prayer not found in any imperial catechism. May I remember enough to learn, forget enough to serve, and forgive enough to rest. This is the closest thing the blood ravens have to peace. Not absolution, not cleansing, only balance, the quiet line between knowing and breaking. And in that balance lies their strange beauty. They are not saints. They are not monsters. They are the keepers of what should never have been known, and the mourners of what should never have been forgotten. There is a story told among the youngest initiates, passed in whispers by candlelight. They say that one day when the Imperium finally falls and the last stars flicker out, there will still be a single blood raven standing in the dark. He will carry the sum of all memory, every battle, every death, every secret. He will walk through the ruins of mankind, searching for a place to lay the burden down. And when he finds it, he will whisper the chapter's final words into the void. We remembered. Then the light will go out, and even the warp will fall silent. When the great rift tore open the heavens, splitting the galaxy in two, even the most faithful faltered. Stars went dark, worlds vanished, fleets were lost in silence, and yet amid that unending storm of madness and despair, a single crimson fleet drifted through the void, engines low, lights dimmed, vox channels quiet. The blood ravens did not cry out. They did not call for aid. They simply continued their vigil. For them, the end of the galaxy was nothing new. They had seen their own world burn long ago. The coming of the Great Rift divided the Imperium into two halves. The Imperium Sanctus, under the light of the Astronomicon, and the Imperium Nihilus, where the Emperor's light could not reach. The blood ravens found themselves caught between them. A fleet scattered across both realms, severed from one another by tides of unreality. Communications failed. Worlds once known were devoured by the warp. Half the chapter vanished, their ships lost beyond the veil. Of those who survived, many were stranded in the Nihilus, forced to navigate blind, guided only by instinct and prayer. And yet, they endured. It is said that the warp itself bent around them, that the whispers they had once feared now guided their paths through the storm. Whether this was divine providence or something darker, none can say. But the blood ravens emerged from the maelstrom changed. Scarred, yes, but still whole enough to fight. When Robot Guilliman, the returned Primarch, launched the Indomitus crusade, the blood ravens received the call as all loyal chapters did. For a time, no answer came. Their fleets were adrift, their communications lost. But then, as the tides of the warp settled, a single message was recorded by an Imperial astropath stationed in the Segmentum Pacificus. It was brief, a voice calm and clear, speaking ancient Low Gothic. "We will guard what remains." Months later, a battered flotilla of red and gold ships arrived at a crusade mustering point near the Macarius Reach. Their hulls bore scorch marks from warp travel, their heraldry darkened with age. At their head was Chapter Master Titus Adraston, a quiet man who refused ceremony and asked for only one thing: supplies for rebuilding their archives. When Guilliman's envoys offered the Primaris gene seed, the blood ravens accepted, cautiously. They integrated the new warriors slowly, testing their minds as much as their bodies. Each Primaris initiate underwent not only combat trials but memory tests, recitations of the chapter's lore, meditations upon its sins. Only those who could bear the weight of the past were allowed to wear the red. The result was a generation of warriors both mightier and more contemplative, giants who fought with strength, but thought with reverence. In the wake of the rift, the blood ravens became less a unified chapter and more a network of fleets, each a self-contained monastery ship, carrying its own archives and interpretations of the creed. Some call themselves the Watchers of the Vault, focusing solely on the protection of relics. Others, like the Fireborn, act as crusading scholars, seeking lost imperial data from the ruins of the Cicatrix Maledictum. A few have gone entirely silent, their signals faint, their locations unknown. The chapter does not see this fragmentation as a curse. They call it the Great Dispersion, a way of ensuring that no single calamity can erase their knowledge again. Each fleet carries a portion of their archives, a shard of their soul. If one falls, the others will endure. In this way, the blood ravens have become the living network of memory they always aspired to be, scattered across the stars, connected by faith and remembrance alone. In the new age of endless war, where chaos rampages openly and the Imperium's faith burns hotter than reason, the blood ravens have chosen a different path: to survive quietly, They do not boast of victories, they do not announce campaigns. They slip between war zones like ghosts, appearing where knowledge is endangered, where relics are misused, where history itself risks being erased. They are the custodians of continuity, the invisible hand that preserves what little remains of the Emperor's truth. Imperial commanders speak of mysterious red-armored Astartes arriving unannounced, saving key data caches or relics, then vanishing before thanks can be offered. When questioned, the Inquisition replies with the same phrase each time: they were never here. Despite their losses, the Blood Ravens still hold relics unmatched by any chapter. Among them, the shattered hammer of Angelos, fragments of Gabriel's weapon reforged into a staff borne by the chief librarian. It hums softly when lies are spoken nearby. The Codex Kyras, a forbidden tome sealed in a sphere of psychic glass, studied only during the darkest hours of the chapter's need. Its words change each time it is read. The Memory Engine, an ancient Mechanicus device salvaged from the pre-heresy era, capable of recording thought directly into data amber. Some say it dreams when left unattended. The Ember of Tartarus, a vial of molten stone taken from the world where Isador fell. It burns eternally without consuming itself, a reminder that redemption and ruin share the same flame. These relics are not trophies, they are confessions, reminders of the price of wisdom. The Blood Ravens carry them not for power, but to ensure that no one ever forgets the cost. The Blood Ravens' relationship with the modern Imperium is complicated. To the Adeptus Mechanicus, they are both invaluable and infuriating. Their archives contain data fragments that the priests of Mars would kill to possess, yet the Ravens share only enough to preserve balance. To the Inquisition, they are a tolerated anomaly. Too useful to condemn, too unpredictable to trust. To other chapters, they are a ghost story, a warning whispered in Reclusiam sermons. Guard your relics or the Ravens will guard them for you. Yet when the Great Rift opened and 1,000 worlds cried for aid, it was often the Blood Ravens who arrived first. Their crimson strike cruisers descending like omens, their librarians weaving psychic wards to shelter the innocent from the warp. Their secrecy may breed suspicion, but their results breed survival. In the era Indomitus, the librarians of the Blood Ravens have become their backbone. With the warp storms raging and communications fractured, psychic communion has replaced the old channels of command. The Librarius no longer merely advises, it governs. Each fleet's chief librarian serves as both spiritual guide and tactical leader. Their minds are linked through a ritual known as the Chorus of Ash, a psychic network that transcends distance, allowing thought to flow where light cannot. It is imperfect, voices overlap, memories blend, but it keeps the chapter united when all else fails. Some among the Ordo Malleus whisper that this network borders on heresy. Others suspect it is all that keeps the Blood Ravens sane. Even now, the ghosts of Kyras and Isador linger in the chapter's psyche. Their names are never spoken aloud, but their influence is everywhere. In the cautious way the librarians handle forbidden lore, in the whispered prayers before each psychic ritual. Some say Kyras' voice still echoes in the warp, calling to those who dream too deeply. Others believe Isador's spirit guards them still, a quiet presence between madness and reason. Perhaps both are true. Perhaps redemption and damnation are simply the same melody sung in different keys. In this age of despair, the Blood Ravens endure, not as conquerors, but as curators of humanity's memory. They do not seek glory. They do not seek dominion. They seek only continuity. Their creed remains unchanged, their motto whispered in every corridor and battlefield. Knowledge is power. Guard it well. And yet a new line has begun to circulate among the youngest Primaris, a quiet addition spoken at the end of the oath. For the Emperor remembers. No one knows who wrote it. Perhaps it came from Gabriel's last words. Perhaps it came from the warp itself, but it spreads nonetheless, a flicker of hope in an age of endless shadow. Imagine them now, a fleet of crimson ships gliding through the void, their engines dim to whispers. Within, monks in armor of blood and gold walk the halls lined with memory and silence. Each one carries the history of 1,000 brothers in his heart. Each one fights not for victory but for understanding. They are the last librarians of a dying age, the custodians of mankind's fading light. And when the galaxy finally falls into darkness, when even the stars forget their names, the blood ravens will still be there, guarding the last spark of knowledge. For they know a truth older than any creed. What is remembered endures, and so they watch, and so they wait, until the end of all things. Knowledge is power. Guard it well. And so as the stars fade and the last echoes of the blood ravens drift into silence, we come to the end of their story, or rather the latest chapter in a tale that never truly ends. Through betrayal and redemption, through madness and memory, the blood ravens have endured. They are the keepers of the forgotten, the guardians of what must never be lost. In a galaxy that worships ignorance as faith, they remember, and perhaps that is enough. If your eyes grow heavy now, let them. Rest easy beneath the quiet wings of the Emperor's sons. Somewhere out there, a crimson fleet still drifts between the stars. Its halls filled with whispers, its vaults heavy with secrets, its warriors forever watching the dark. For knowledge is power, and they guard it well. Thank you for listening, Traveler of the Void. If you enjoyed this journey through the lore, consider staying with us. Subscribe, leave a like, or share this story with another soul who dreams beneath the light of the Astronomicon. Every small act keeps these tales alive, one whisper at a time. Until next time, may the Emperor protect you, and may your dreams be quiet.